Good afternoon again. Well, first of all, congratulations for staying through 3-4 hours already. So we'll definitely make it more fun for you. What we're going to do here is talk about the speed of innovation. And the speed of innovation, we heard enough about it. But the point is, let's talk about something innovative idea. And the innovative idea is, again, going back to the similar format, is it's not about launching some traditional business model. Let's assume that we launch some on-demand insurance product, and we'll talk about it, what that means. And we want to cover a certain kind of risk that may be used for gig economy. And something that we all see with Uber, with Airbnb, and so forth and so on. And we want to make sure that that is marketed to the consumers, not in a traditional way, but something that at their convenience, as per their preferences on a various different devices. So what Sachin and I are going to show you is, again, Trident Insurance is going to launch a new on-demand product called HomeShare. What they saw it in the market is that, yes, they do write the homeowner's policy and all, but what they saw it in the market is that they do have customers, their existing customers as well, they do rent out the homes on Airbnb. And when they rent out the homes on Airbnb, they don't really are covered for all those, exposures that they get because of that. And they say that maybe it's something worth trying. They're not 100% sure, just like any new ideas. They're not 100% sure, but it seems like an opening for them. It seems like their customer base is using it. And it seems like they might be, if not the first entrant, at least one of the early entrants to really test out the market. And they want to make sure that they offer this thing in a most enjoyable way, where the customers can use this product to get their insurance with a very flexible pricing at various different ways, not just by logging into traditionally onto the customer portal. So when I introduce, I gave my introduction, I want to introduce Sachin Damne. He leads our digital-first insurance platform. When I met him a few years ago, he had full head of hair. So I would say that that's all kind of contributed to the innovations that he has sacrificed. And what we both are going to show you is that Trident Insurance, they launched it in a couple of weeks using the Majesco cloud-native microservices-based digital-first platform. But since the product is so different, I don't want to take you down into the mechanics of the product. Why don't I show you first what that product looks like? So the way Majesco and Trident really envisioned this thing is through the customer journey. A little bit different than how we think about a product in terms of rate, rules, forms, filing, things like that. So the customer journey kind of envisioned in this case was that the insurer or a potential insurer would actually onboard, which means that they will register their home, so to speak, and they will get a typical quote, an indicative price that it will cost you a certain amount of dollars per day to actually get an insurance, which means that they have a locked price for a certain period of time for their address. That point, they are not really buying an insurance. They just have registered, and they now are all set to buy an insurance. When they rent out their home, at that point, they can add the duration for which that they rented out for that insurance, which means they can turn on the insurance and they can turn off the insurance for after that duration. So as you can see, there are a couple of journeys here saying that onboarding journey, and also how do you actually on and off your insurance. So let's see how that looks like. And what I will ask Sachin is that, are you going to, as a consumer of this, as you yourself, provide this, buy this insurance? Can we get the demo, please, running? Okay, so what Sachin is probably going to show you is that he is not even using his desktop. He's going to go and pull up his iPhone and see that how he can show us the onboarding journey. So Sachin.
Sure.
Take us through.
Okay. Manish, thank you for the kind introduction and taking down the memory lane. All right, so we're going to start with the onboarding journey for this user experience, where the consumer is basically just exploring the product and then he's going to sign up for this on-demand insurance for renting his house. Okay. So just enter the address.
So obviously, as you can expect, it's an API integrated with Google Maps or Google Address.
So it uses the address validation, shows the preview, click next. We're going to do some property validations and show what kind of insurance the insured would like to get at this point, whether they are going to rent the entire home, part of their home, which will typically happen when they are doing home sharing with Airbnbs and those kind of companies. Right now, we're just going to select the entire home. And one thing you'll notice is the whole user experience is very much mobile friendly. It's a simple one thumb navigation kind of a user experience. Click next. Based on the parameters that are already set and the risk analysis, we're kind of showing an indicative premium at this point and whether they would like to sign up or not. So it doesn't take a whole lot of steps for someone to discover how much premium it's going to take. They can quickly discover what they can sell, basically price their insurance for, and they can sign up for the insurance. Now, at this point, if the price looks right, the consumer will typically go and sign up. So this is a sign up journey. I'm just going to enter my details. I'll choose my own password. Everybody's seeing the password, so I can't keep it super secret. All right. Sign up. So at this point, by using all this information, a user account has been already created and a confirmation email has been sent to this account. Okay. Now, let's check my email account here. And there you go. We have a sign up email confirmation welcoming me as a user and asking me to activate my account. Now, at this point, I can confirm my email address, validate, and then I can log in and continue with my journey to manage the providers, the stays, or if there are any claims at a later point in time and view the history of all the transactions that have happened. All right, so here is the screen where it will simply allow me to add various stays that I may have, right? And manage those stays, report a claim, and view all the transaction history and everything. Now here is the thing.
So Sachin, so what we did just now is we onboarded. He hasn't bought any insurance at this point. Now he can log in through the mobile device, through the desktop, and then whenever the person is ready to buy an insurance because they rented the house through Airbnb, they can add a new stay and it will cover it.
Right.
But it's just kind of hard because by the time I will rent it, I would not remember where to go and all those things. So is there any other way that can make it even more friendlier?
Right. We talked about Omni devices, right? The new customer expectations shaped by various things they're looking at. So we have Alexa device here. So what we can do is, with digital first, everything is exposed as APIs. And Srini, just in the prior presentation, talked about the open APIs, and how the InsurTech can bring those things to make interesting integrations and use cases possible. So what we have here is the app that is built, already exposes those APIs, and we're going to actually use Alexa to add this thing. There she is. Alexa, open digital first home share.
Welcome. How can I help you with your insurance policy?
Add stay.
When will the guests be arriving?
Day after tomorrow.
How many days will the guests be staying?
3.
Okay, you would like to start insurance from September 25th, 2019 for 3 days. Is that correct?
Yes.
You are all set. You'll shortly receive an email with insurance details. From September 25th, 2019 for 3 days.
Goodbye.
That's it. So now I added a stay.
All right. There you go. There you go.
Oh, there you go. So this is how simple, this is how seamless the whole customer experience should be. Also, you should be able to drop off your customer experience from one device and pick it up right from the another one. And this is all possible. It's not a rocket science, at least probably not. Is it something, Sachin, took you like a lot of people to build it? Like how, what's the experience of building this thing?
Not really. So I have just one college grad. Okay, he's just a college grad, not someone who has like years of experience building in Java or .NET microservices. He worked with me for a little over 8 days with some time and guidance from me. So roughly 2 weeks.
Okay, so can we get some, behind the scene on how we can do this thing?
Definitely.
So I think, it goes without saying that this was one example, one use case. The point is that here, the challenge is not going to be how do you execute. The challenge is going to be what kind of ideas and the products and the customer experience that you can imagine. So need to reimagine the entire thing, right, from the customer perspective, rather than just from a process perspective. And the digital first platform, what we're going to see is going to enable you to get your idea to the reality very, very quickly. Okay, so first and foremost, help me understand. So most of the time when I have seen all these cool experiences, they're kind of often, shiny posters or a layer or anything like that. But in this day and age, we also need the data quite a bit.
Right.
We need to learn from our customers' behavior, how they're using the systems, what kind of risk they're having, what kind of satisfaction they're having. So is this platform just kind of a UI and some cool stuff, or does it actually store some data behind it and that I can actually use it for AI later on?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Mani. So this is one of the things that happens, especially when you just talk about platforms that are doing no-code development. Quite often, in the name of speed of development, some of the architectural concepts such as data store, storing all that data for later processing and all those things are kind of forgotten, but not with digital first. With digital first, even though you're doing a no-code development, you're still underlying generating those microservices, you're defining your data objects, your data models. So for example, right here, for the digital first home share product that we showed right now, here is the object model that is created, okay? So the customer model, which is used for this particular product, is fully built out right here, using the standard objects that are already available as a part of our data dictionary, such as the party, the person, phone information, whatnot. But we also created a home share line of business with its associated location, different kind of providers that will capture. So in this case, we have defaulted as Airbnb, but it could be home share or other things that may be present. So you can basically configure all those things. You're not bypassing any of the data definitions.
That's great stuff. So a couple of things come from Dan's point from the panel. One is the flexibility. So what if I learn more and if I want to expand the coverages, is it pretty straightforward, simple to do it? by expanding the data models?
Exactly. So it's
Okay.
not really that hard. You could, let's say you want to create an object. So already the objects themselves, it comes up with a lot of insurance objects and object models pre-built. So that accelerates your development. So you're not starting from the scratch, such as party claims, various kind of objects that will be typically used for the insurance business. But you could also just create a new object at any point in time, and simple point click, you can define your attributes, the data validation properties. So all of these can be done simply using drag and drop, point click kind of an environment, and you can define your objects. And once you have created your object that define your data structure, you can again go back to your object models and you can specify where in this model, in terms of relation, that particular object need to sit. So how those two things tie together?
So, okay, so it's flexible. I can make a change. Now, oftentimes we have seen into the typical, insurance systems, you make a change and then you have to coordinate with ID and then you have to deploy those things. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the continuous integration, continuous development, the CI/CD, the DevOps principle, what does the platform provide me behind, out of the box, where I don't have to manage the versions and the environments and the promotions? Is it something that you have thought through in this platform too?
Absolutely. The whole product development started inside out and outside in as well, in terms of whole developer experience, but at the same time from the operations experience. It is built truly as a DevOps platform, handles CI/CD, all those aspects. So anytime you're making any changes in any of the screens, right? What ends up happening is you have to, when you are making the changes, you have to select a ticket. Now, those tickets ultimately will show up in your deployment board. So this is the deployment board where all your apps that you have developed, the various tickets that have been used to build different functionalities will show up. Now at this point, any functionality that is developed will show with the ticket in the development bucket. And once you mark it as development done, meaning that you have tested in your development sandbox. And by the way, anytime a new tenant is added, Manish, we already gave automatically out of the box 4 sandboxes that you can see for every tenant, which is development environment, test environment, acceptance, which is where you'll do all your final testing before promoting to production.
So basically what you're saying is that this platform allows me to imagine an idea, start configuring this idea, and then deploy all the way into the production without me investing anything from my infrastructure, just available not just as a software as a service, but a platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service, all combined together to make my experiment go quickly.
Go quickly, that's right.
Okay. So I mean, you showed some of the screens, and I'm really interested in seeing that, how can you, what kind of things that can be, what kind of user experiences in terms of your screen design, your UI, UX that comes out of the box, and how easy it is.
So what you just saw, right, the app that was developed, and I showed it on the mobile interface. But what we do is we are actually defining all the screens using the Bootstrap and Angular technologies, which allow you to define screens which are really web responsive, which means they will adjust themselves based on which screen, what type of device or orientation you are using it in, and it will automatically adjust itself.
So wait a second. So what you are telling me is that the screen that you showed on mobile would work on a desktop.
Oh, absolutely.
It will have a different layout, but you didn't have to do any extra work for that.
Absolutely nothing.
That's beautiful.
So here is the same screens that we went in. Now, obviously, we have not defined a separate layout per se. But at the same time, you have all the flexibility to define any kind of user interface and how you would like to make it different based on the devices.
Can you take us through one of the page and see, how easy to make changes in there?
Sure. All right. So we have these pages sections where various pages have been created. So why don't we go back to this location screen, right? Where we, as a part of our onboarding, we asked for the address. That was our first screen, right? So this is our page editor. I selected the location screen that we were looking at. Mm-hmm. Okay. What you will notice here is, let me select edit here. So anytime I'm trying to make any kind of changes, the system will force me to select what kind of ticket that I want to make changes with, so that it can track every single change that has been done automatically. So it's automatically doing very granular version management so that it identifies exactly what kind of changes those are and it can push those. So this is the page editor. What you will notice is it has a very simple rows and columns kind of a layout. Okay, so you don't really need to be a user interface expert in order to build all these web responsive user interfaces that could be used on mobiles, desktop, or handheld devices. So what you see here, there is a header section at the top where you can put your headers, a center section where you can define your forms, navigation controls, those kind of things. So for example, on this screen when we went in, right, we just entered our address and we continued with it. But what if we wanted to kind of capture some kind of consents from the user that, okay, I agree to the privacy policy, right? You don't want to just capture the information and move on. So we can actually go and add
Sure.
that field and see it.
Let's do it.
So here you go. All the plus signs are basically something where you can add new components or widgets. So I just clicked on add. What you can notice here is there are lots of out-of-box widgets that are available from the platform. And we continue adding more and more widgets here. But the beauty is it's not something we're tying your hands, okay? So if you come up with some cool idea, you found that, okay, I have this nice widget library somewhere, you could always bring those in by building your own custom widgets, and you can build it and add it into the platform.
Okay, so let me understand this a little bit more, because that's always been my concern, is these platforms are good, they're giving me speed, they're giving me a lot of benefits, but would that constrain me by any means in terms of customer experience that I want to drive because I'm within the platform?
No, absolutely no. So in fact,
Okay.
you don't even have to use any of the widgets that we have given. We have customers who have completely built out a different widget library altogether. So after we're done, I'll show you where you can actually import a theme library and you can apply your own custom themes. You can apply your own custom widgets too.
So that's pretty cool. I get the best of both.
All right. So we're going to just select the checkbox widget here because we want to ask for a consent. So here's the property panel where you can define various properties of the widget that you're going to add.
So while looking at this, while you're typing it, this pretty much looks like you are, it's a simplicity of like a website, design, like, the various, online tools available for building a website. Is that what the intent is here, that building a UI, even though it's more complex, it has business rules, it has data behind it, even you are considering a productivity of a configurator and also a experience of a configurator as simple as building a website?
That's correct. I mean, a lot of people coming with all this visible drag and drop background, working with different IDs, they'll find this kind of interface very easy to use because they have those experiences. And like I can show you here, right? So we are adding this label. We can define various properties. So in this case, I'm going to say label position. I'm going to keep it on the left or right, let's say right, because we're going to have checkbox first, and then we are going to show the label. Now I'm just going to say apply. And what you can see is the checkbox that we had added already appears on the screen. So it's not like I'm making some change, I'm going to make a build, deploy, and then test it somewhere. You make a change, you see it right then and there.
Oh, that's pretty powerful. So that's great. That gives me a view in terms of how you can define different UI elements and all those things. But at some point it has to come together, right? Like what we talked about the customer journeys. Mm-hmm. We talked about the onboarding journey. We talked about sign up journeys. We talked about adding a stay journey. So how does that come together? You also showed a little bit about the API integrations from the third parties like Google and other things. So can you show like what the not that, but I just want to see like what the flow looks like in terms of a customer journey and how configurable it is?
Sure. But before we go there, I just want to finish this chain so we can quickly show.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So one part, Manish, I think we should also indicate it. Like we added the checkbox, right? But what if you wanted to actually store this consent somewhere, right? We talked about the data model earlier. It's not about just a cool UI that displays nice. So we added this label. So why don't we go ahead and say, okay, we want to store actually this information so that we can later on use it. So here's the object tab. I'm just going to select that. I'm going to bind this with this consents field that we already have, that the user agrees to the privacy policy. Okay? So again, drag and drop, simple selection through a wizard.
Okay, so hold on. So let me understand what you just did. What you just did here is you now have automatically on a no-code, not even a low-code,
yes,
on a no-code manner, you have managed the entire database and UI integrations. That means whatever I now select does get saved. Mm-hmm. Whatever is saved, I can see.
Right.
And you didn't have to write a single code for that.
Yes, not while developing the app.
Wow,
And
that's pretty cool.
all of this, it's still going to work with the purest architecture that you will look at in terms of microservices. All the data is still exposed as microservices, exposed as GraphQL APIs that are then connected through the user interface, and you can actually see it work.
So what you're saying is that you have done all those rocket science engineering things that you just talked about.
Yes.
I only understood half of it, so that when we are building those applications, we don't have to worry about it.
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So we made this change. So we'll just quickly, before we jump to your next question, we'll go and quickly see this. So right on the first screen, here we go. We have our checkbox field showing up asking for the policy.
So I don't need to do any build and
No build, no
deployment, and it's
deployment.
just like immediately available.
Immediately
Oh, that can help quite a bit in terms of trying things out.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So going back to your question about how all of this comes together,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
things are staged, the pages, various services that are getting called. So for that, we have flow. Okay. So flow is where you can basically bring all your steps together and put your sitemap together, how your headless APIs and services are getting called together from the Eco Exchange. So here is the flow that we have for our app. Okay. Let me zoom it a little bit so you can see it, and I'll explain various components on this page. So very simple graphical wizard here for building the flows. Looks exactly like a flowchart would. What you will see on the left-hand side here are various kind of steps. Okay, they're color-coded, they have different icons. So for example, you can drag and drop pages. So this whole journey that we went through where we captured the location information, the type of property, whether it was a full home or partial home, the quoting information after calling the quoting API, the whole capturing of the user's information, creating and registering the user in the system. Now here is another important thing, okay? So these were all pages, but here is one cool thing, Manish. So platform is not just coming up with these themes and widgets and out-of-box object models, but even comes with standard APIs and processing, such as we imported an app that allows you to configure the user's onboarding journey, right? So this onboarding journey has a registered user as one of the API. So we simply dragged and dropped this API and selected it. So we didn't have to really program any of that.
So I can consume an external API just like that.
That's exactly. Now this is actually provided as an app within the platform. But if you remember, there was an email confirmation setup.
Yes.
So that's where the SendGrid comes. So this is the Eco Exchange app. And again, just like reusing existing APIs, you could drag and drop an Eco Exchange app and wire it in the flow.
And SendGrid is one of our Eco Exchange partners.
Yes,
They're recently bought by Twilio, and they are one of the most used email system for the mass communication. Okay. So you get the reliability of SendGrid within your operations and all the flexibility and the features that you get at a very fraction of cost.
Right, and without having to really even learn about the SendGrid APIs or any of those. And
So this is amazing. Now, this to me seems like a customer journey that you are depicting here.
Right.
And I like to learn when I roll this thing out. There are a couple of things come in my mind, and I want to see whether the platform can actually help us do that, because I am rolling it out, but really speaking, I'm learning it. As in, I'm launching this innovative product, I'm learning about it, which means I need to understand that what is the data, how it is being used. So is there any analytics that can be generated? And then can I do some kind of an A/B testing if I'm not sure, to even further validate my understanding?
That's a very good question. So all this information, not just what you're seeing on the flow, but even in terms of the user interaction that will happen on the page itself, like how much time users spent on a field, or how often they change the value of a field. All that granular interactions do get saved as a part of our journey audit log, which we can then query and build some kind of models.
Great.
In fact, one of our partner, right? So when I went to that widget list where I added the checkbox, one of the widget, which was a custom widget that we added, was from actually SmartLook. So SmartLook again specializes on finding out all this kind of user interactions that are happening, log it, and then you can build your event saying how often user actually went through these 2 pages, entered these values, but then did not go through this journey. Like they entered this question, but did not actually end up buying the code. So all those kind of analytics can also be done. You can visualize the recording of the user sessions in a compliant manner. All those things are possible.
That's cool. That's cool. So one thing you showed is Alexa, and that it just seems like how do you do that? Because is it something I have to write a code separately for Alexa, and I have to write the same thing if the customer wants to come into my mobile or my desktop app to actually add the insurance or start the insurance, or is there something that you have further optimized to make things better?
So on that front, Manish, the user interface and the Alexa both are calling same API. So for example, the add stay API, right, was right here. And if you remember, as a part of adding the stay, it sent an Twilio message, right? So there you go. It's right here. So you can basically build your APIs also in a no-code, low-code manner and integrate those.
Okay, so that didn't occur to me. I thought that we had to write some kind of a programming to build an API, but you're saying that it's the same methodology that you can use, and that same API then can be called from UI or from Alexa or from multiple devices.
That is correct. So this is the same API, and it is actually exposed from the digital first without doing any kind of special deployment, and then called from Alexa.
Okay, that seems powerful. So as we make this thing more and more friendly, we want to understand the customer more. And when we go out into the multiple states, there might be a preference in terms of customers using the language of their choices.
Right.
Is that platform can help me personalize it further with the different languages?
Oh, sure. So let's give it a shot here. Okay. So we have this module called Localization. Okay. So what localization does is it allows you to basically translate any of your user interface in any of the supported languages, which is basically all the languages that are available. And the way it works is there is a section called Locale. So Locale lists all the languages in the world. So even if Arabic is there, Arabic with different dialects from different regions are there, right? So what you can do is you can basically say which of these locale I really want to present my app in. Okay, so in this case, these are the API locales that we have configured as active locales.
Right.
And now what we have done is, after selecting those as active locale, we can go into the translations. Now what ends up happening is, for example, all these fields that you are seeing here, right? So there was this partial home, for example. Right? So all these words that are captured anywhere in the application, whether it's part of your labels that you have defined on the pages, or whether you're capturing those as a part of your validation messages, system automatically keeps track of all the user interface elements and keeps them as something that needs to be translated. So once you decide that I want to translate it into those different languages, you can come here, select it, and then you can specify that for each of the language that are made applicable, what should be the translation?
So it doesn't matter whether it's a multi-byte language, whether it is a single byte language. You can basically do all those things, and that's again in a no-code manner.
Again, no-code manner.
Okay.
And again, by default, we have integrated it with the Google's translator. You don't always get the best translation, but it's a starting point, and then you can work with the right people to understand what the real translation should be and enter those in the system. Now, once this is done, Manish, all it takes is there are two things you can actually do the localization and make it available. So in the application settings, you could specify what should be your application default locale. Okay, so here we have set US English, but let's do something. We can go to the page, right? And our first page, which was the location, right? We can go ahead and add a widget that will allow us to select which language I want to see this in. Okay? There
You
you
just
go.
converted the application in Chinese, and all you need to now do is provide the translation for I agree to privacy
one-
policy, and that will appear too, because you
Exactly.
just added that.
Exactly. So that's
Beautiful.
how simple it is. So it's multi-currency, multi-local, multi-everything.
That almost seems magical. One last thing, we have some time here. I like your color, and this is good Majesco color, but as an insurance company, do I have options to do some of the theming?
Yes, as I said, right, you're not locked into anything. You could change any part of the system that you want. So we also have a theming module where the out-of-box themes that we provide are present and you could customize them. But what you will notice here is we have actually created few more themes. Okay, so we can, just like we added the local drop-down, I can go ahead and add that drop-down to select the theme.
So it's that simple, just
That's
pretty
simple.
much straightforward.
Exactly.
And when you define a
And-
theme, you can choose whatever you want, like colors, fonts,
Right.
all those
So
things.
like this Algerian theme, it just takes the same basic theme that we have,
Yep.
but changes some background colors that are shown in the headers and footers, and you could control every single aspect of the user interface for any kind of widget that we have. So
Well, look, what you're showing is really intriguing, and I'm sure that there are way more capabilities out there than we have time to talk about it. But let me ask you, in interest of time, a very important question. That let's assume that my business gets really, it does pick up and it becomes a mainstream. Technically, how good the platform is and how will it scale, and will it scale economically, and what about some of the technologies that you want to talk about so that I understand that actually it will keep up with my business growth?
right. So this platform itself is powered by the same kind of technologies that all the new architectures, such as the cloud native microservices architecture, is deployed to build the microservices behind this. So even though you're using no code and simplicity of development, behind the scene, you're still using the same capabilities, which can scale on demand. They're really lightweight, they're cloud native. They work with tools such as Rancher to manage those container orchestration. We have AI-enabled platforms such as Instana that monitor the health of the system. They can trigger different kind of actions so that we can automatically scale up and down based on the demand as it comes in.
And it is pretty safe to assume that if I want to use this platform as building a customer journeys or experience, but with the power of the Majesco core, like what Samir and Mike showed us, it will come pre-integrated?
Yes, not quite integrated, but obviously we make that integration so easy, and again, no code, that it's just no-brainer to use digital first for anyone who actually have a Majesco core.
So I don't
and
have
want
to
utilize
write. I don't have to write the code for API and all those things.
No.
It just basically understands each other so that it can seamlessly integrate and keep
correct.
up with the changes.
Yeah. So you see this icon here for the connector.
Uh-huh.
So this connector is actually allowing you to carry out a no-code integration with any of our core system platforms. So Majesco Policy is the first connector that we have built.
That's great.
So the policy system automatically provides various microservices API, but instead of stitching one API at a time, you could actually just use the connector module to do a no-code configuration, and it will behind the scene, regardless of user journey that you're following, it will keep track of all the changes that the user is making on the screen and carry out the bidirectional syncing of the data and the validations.
So I can use it for building a innovative product, but then I can also use this thing as adding a more ultra configurable customer experience on top of the traditional optimized, modernized kind of a business model running on the Majesco core systems, or for that matter, any core system.
Any core system.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, great. I think that this is very, very exciting. This is very magical in some sense. In fact, I would say that we are taking more from low code, no code to almost like a no code approach. So we have like Liz, about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to give a chance if somebody has any questions for me or Sachin, feel free to probe it. If you think it's too good to be true, ask a question to find out whether it is too good to be true. Yes.
So you talked about integration with non-Majesco courses. Can you talk a little bit about what that integration might look like?
Right. So what that integration will look like, and Sachin add that to it, but we expect that the non-Majesco core system should have some form of API. Now, the granularity of the API may vary. that some core systems are not very sophisticated and they would basically not have very granular API where you can just say, I can add a vehicle or I can just add a coverage. They may just simply can say that I can only rate the whole code. So depending on the granularity of the API, but you can consume any of the APIs and put that right inside this flow and then just call that as a point. So you're controlling from the user experience rather than being constrained by what the back office system is. Does that answer your question?
And the system also, I didn't have much time to go through, but we also have out-of-box support for open APIs, where you could import your open APIs, and then they just become available as a part of that flow wizard, where you could just wire the APIs and use them.
And in some sense, we're not saying that we are replacing anything or that's not the intent, but many cases, sometimes it is expensive, especially for the smaller carriers, to invest into a 7-digit plus licenses of MuleSoft. And having that kind of an ESB layer right there where you can import the open APIs, which becomes available, you drag it into the flow so that it's a no code, and then you just stitch it up with whatever the step before and after of your customer journey within the digital first, and it just completely eliminates the need for the MuleSoft for that specific reason. Any other questions? Okay, so look, the point here is that, have you seen that ad that I'm always fascinated by Volkswagen? And that logo was drivers wanted. The car can drive various different ways. And here also we want the dreamers wanted in terms of thinking that what kind of product, what kind of experience, what kind of devices that you want to try out, what kind of experiences you want to try out, what kind of analytics you want to extract from it, and then roll this thing out. The platform's ready, platform's being used in production, and I think that at this point, the real focus goes in terms of what kind of innovation that you want to do in your thought process of what you want to roll out and how you want to really impact your customer experience and eventually to your brand. So with that, appreciate you listening through and hope you enjoyed this.